All right, all right. Welcome in, Kelvin. It's
Yeah,
great to finally sit down and chat.
yeah.
We've been setting up at your office. This is probably one of the most interesting projects I've seen. We're currently at a covered land play of yours. Can you tell us a little bit of what's going on? I'm probably gonna also give like a little
Yeah.
video preview.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a very interesting project. My it's combining my I wanted to go to art school,
Mm-hmm.
and then my parents said no. So I ended up going to architecture school, which is like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing drawing, you're doing some math. So this project we have about 130 to 140 artists,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a creative studio. We have painters, sculptors, ceramic artists, digital artists, just all kinds of creative people. We have art gallery in here. We have nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
We have a testing center, educational component to this,
Hmm.
and so this has been kind of a passion project and of mine. And I think this is something that I feel like Austin, is very much in demand, and there's a shortage of affordable creative studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to quickly preface this with a little bit of who you are and why I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So big thing about me is that I'm really into real estate, going to school for it, studying at UT for it, and I actually met Calvin upon asking a friend who he would recommend talking to about commercial deals within Austin. And he said he recommended architects by the name of Calvin. And a little bit about Calvin, he co founded Chen Studio, and he has had a vast array of experiences. From my understanding, you were born in Taipei, Taiwan,
Yeah.
and you were getting your degree at UT Austin, so you have some of that multi country background
Yeah.
and multicultural background. You've had projects ranging from high end to residential real estate, and we've seen everything from urban mixed use developments to uh, environmentally sustainable projects. And I find it very interesting because I've had a previous episode with Austin Airport architect Larry Speck, and the way architects kind of look at real estate is different from your traditional like BlackRock, Blackstone,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
those big conglomerates of
Yeah.
companies. And you have like a little bit more of a creative spin, but you're also in this game to not lose money. So I'm kind of excited to hear a little bit about you. I know you've received like numerous awards and accolades for your architecture work, and you've also saved projects coming out of the dust. Um, so I'm really excited to talk with you, and we could go based on that. What is like some of the experiences that have shaped you into this specific project? What made this project really interesting for you?
This particular
Yeah.
project here. So I think we're very fortunate for multiple reasons to be in Austin, Texas, which is one
Mm-hmm.
of the most exciting places in the U.S., if not in the world. In terms of all the technology, new technology, all the entrepreneurial things happening, and also just historically, it's a very culturally very rich, has a cultural richness.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is I think we are spoiled and fortunate to have a lot of very interesting clients, which
Mm-hmm.
is very unique. Maybe more so than bigger cities like Houston or Dallas. I think Austin tend to the architecture they punch above their weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think like in terms of density, there are more interesting architecture being
Mm-hmm.
produced in Austin, and then also the geography, the landscape is also beautiful. So you have these factors that impact your projects, and then so to your point about I think architecture and development, there's a sort of left brain and right brain
Mm-hmm.
balance between creativity and financial discipline, and that's always been the difficult thing to balance, to try to find a sweet spot, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
like Goldie, like not too hot, not too cold. So you know, and I think I learned this a lot. You know, if you look at the work of somebody like Frank Gehry, who's in his 90s now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he just signed a 10-year lease for his office.
So who is Frank Gehry? Just like for
Frank,
anyone who's not familiar with
yeah,
him.
Frank Gehry is the architect for the Guggenheim Bilbao, and a great American, Canadian American architect
Mm-hmm.
on the West Coast, and you know, designed the Disney concert hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, you know, he spent decades working with very humble materials, and he hung out with a lot of artists.
Mm-hmm.
When he was young, he did a lot of studios and homes for artists. He had more artist friends than architects.
Mm-hmm.
So he, you know, and by the time he was about 45, I think he was fired by his commercial client, and that they, as a favor, they told him to pursue his dream and really focus on more creatively pure projects. And so
Mm-hmm.
so he has spent years working on like unglamorous projects, very
Mm-hmm.
learning the ropes. And so architecture is, it's a long business. You know, it takes a long time to learn, to build up, and to build trust, and then learn about the business, and work with, you know, contractors and subcontractors. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think architects generally are a little bit like a conductor. You know a little bit about everything, but then you're trying to orchestrate, and then you try to, you know, you have to understand your client's financial needs, and pragmatic needs, and also there's certain aesthetic aspirations. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's a balancing act between all of these. It's not like a hero. It's more of a, you know, like trying to find happy medium,
Mm-hmm.
building consensus, and while maintaining some kind of artistic integrity. You know, so
Yeah.
it's a very interesting. You're never bored.
Yeah.
You're always solving some kind of problem. You
Yeah.
know,
I,
and yeah.
I mean, yeah, we see this with like Austin housing, especially. Like if you look at East Austin, there is like a lot of the culture.
Yeah.
Some of the houses are now being torn down
Right.
and being turned
Yeah.
into like more modern residential
Yeah.
homes.
Yeah.
And then you see developments like in
Right.
Farther East Austin,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the DR Hortons, the
Right.
Lennars, and
Yeah.
all these big companies that have these like copy and paste homes. And I remember whenever I was first going into residential real estate, whenever I was trying to shoot my shot as a realtor,
Yeah.
I remember I looked at a foundation that was 10 feet tall. And I was like, what? You have to have stairs to just access your backyard. And I believe architecture is kind of like it you see it in a lot of places, but it's almost like an afterthought for a lot of these developers. Whenever you're kind of like going into like this thought process, I mean, you talk about like the balancing act, but what do you notice, like how do you like intuitively feel whenever you're managing like a budget versus like your artistic vision?
I think you have to play the long game. It's you know, you pick your battles, and then it's I think this is a word that Tom Main uses. It's accretional. It's over time. It's iterative, and you build up. You know, again, you look at somebody like Frank. He was using in the first 20-30 years. He was working with chain link fence, plywood, cardboard. He was building cardboard furnitures. Yeah,
Really?
He did a whole series of cardboard tables and chairs, and you know, interior furnitures. And so so I think sometimes, you know, you know, it's like necessity is the mother of invention. You are sometimes you get put in a tough spot, and it forces you to be creative. And so you know, we started with very small, very humble projects, you know, renovation additions, and just over time you build up, you know, your vocabulary of material palettes, and just you know, being strategic and spending money where it counts. You know?
So like, let's say someone out of me who's really interested in real estate. I'm interested in becoming an investor in real estate. Where would you say is like the biggest bang for my buck in terms of like people to learn from? Who are like the people that I should trust and almost like follow in their footsteps? Like, what are like some of the characteristics at with like having like good sustainable projects that like maybe are environmentally good, but then there's also like the projects that are like new and innovative and are pushing the boundaries of like this very traditional real estate industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's like some people like you that mix those two together, but it's like me and a bunch of other real estate people within like McCombs at the University of Texas, kind of geared towards like a lot of like the big development firms, like the Newmarks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Blackstones,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
all these big companies. Where would
Yeah.
you say is like that's a firm that has like their visions like
Yeah. Yeah.
set
Yeah.
good?
So, I think, coming from architecture background, we look at a lot of precedent studies, we look at a lot of benchmark projects, and
Mm-hmm.
so certainly in the last couple of decades, after the second half of the 20th century, you get into modernism, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's there's been a return to like at an urban scale to like new urbanism.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of these communities seaside, and that's in the maybe the last 3 4 decades
Mm-hmm.
that um, that people are looking at for more pedestrian friendly, human
Mm-hmm.
scale, more walking, biking, less cars, so the more humanistic way
Mm-hmm.
to um, to design. And this is something like also Frank Lloyd Wright did a lot. Like there's a level of sensitivity. Like he thinks about when he designed a house. He's thinking about the light, like the season, and then he designed the window so that when you're having coffee in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and the sunlight hits your toes to warm up your feet.
Hmm.
There's like a level of sensitivity that's not possible when you're building a community of 1,000 homes.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that. And I think our connection with nature also is kind of over time as it's less and less,
Mm-hmm.
as we become more urbanized. So how do you bring that back? There's a so there's a lot interesting things
Mm-hmm.
to explore, um and also like there was a project in South Dallas, I think, in with this developer's name is Michael. He's divided his time between Dallas and Santa Monica. I think
Mm-hmm.
he started this project in an existing neighborhood, and then he started doing infill. It's a mixed use project with infill buildings between existing bungalows, and it was done in a very sense. And they're like restaurants and outdoor,
Mm-hmm.
public plazas and spaces, and so they're good examples
Mm-hmm.
that we see that you know that are that gives hope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, there are lots of great people doing great things. Um,
But you would say like to look out more for those people that are in a sense like creating communities like where their work is being shown. So like for example, I could say like in D.R. Horton, like they have great amenities, but it's
mhm,
like
mhm.
very like I know I'm in the suburbs whenever I
Yeah,
visit
yeah,
like a D.R.
yeah,
Horton
right,
development.
yeah, yeah.
And then there's like other projects, like if I ever go to like, for example, Westlakes, and there's like different,
Yeah.
different styles of homes,
Hmm.
different like
Yeah.
lifestyles. There's people
Right.
that are that I don't even think I'll say East Austin is probably like
Hmm.
a better example,
Hmm.
like where like the community is there, where there's like a mix of like high and like low end
Hmm.
living,
Hmm.
but then there's also like a lot of the community events.
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
lot of
Yeah.
Austin life is
Right.
happening within East Austin,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that is like an area that has been affected by countless amounts of developers,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
not so much one.
Right.
Would you
Right.
say it's like focus on the people that are doing projects like East Austin?
Um, I think I think this is the difficult thing is to find a sweet spot, the balance
Mm-hmm.
between you know, how do people are attracted to a certain area, like say East Austin, and then how do you attracted there? How do you not destroy in the process?
Mm.
How do you not destroy what attracted you there in the first place? And so, and I think there's a kind of a equilibrium where you have a good mix of the old and the new that makes it. You have the contrast, and you have the history, and the the cultural legacies and the communities that's
Mm-hmm.
always been there, that it's a healthy kind of merging, and not
Mm-hmm.
like overwhelm, and so that's a difficult,
Yeah.
thing, and to achieve that balance,
Yeah,
and
it's almost like trying not to gentrify the area too much, because it's like adding funding to a neighborhood,
yeah,
adding
yeah,
resources
yeah,
and infrastructure to a neighborhood is
yeah,
overall good for like
yeah,
the quality of
right,
life
right,
of the people that are
yeah,
going into this.
yeah.
Um,
And their efforts, like
mhm,
we years ago we donated to an initiative. I think it was like a Granny Flats initiative. So basically, what that program is, help working with existing home owners to build like a secondary structure in the back where they can generate income, and then to
mhm,
help help offset,
mhm,
you know additional taxes, other burdens. So
hmm,
there are efforts, there are groups that are there, ideas being circulated, and then efforts being made to try to have some kind of a have your cake and eat it too, have some
mhm,
kind of a balance, and it's not always easy,
mhm.
and we're at the mercy of the economy, and there are all these social economic factors at play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, especially when it comes like to things such as like gentrification. It's like you talk to any person that's lived in Austin for more than 20 years, they've seen it. They've seen like how all these neighborhoods have developed tremendously, or you see new bars, new shops, but
Yeah.
we're also talking about like people getting kicked out of like their homes, and like property taxes going up, and um, people not being able to pay the property taxes, because like if we really think about it, property taxes are almost like a tax on the wealthy. It's like a way that municipalities and
Mm-hmm.
counties overall
Mm-hmm.
levy taxes heavier towards like the people who are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
wealthier. But if
Mm-hmm.
your area is becoming wealthier, and you're like still in like the same or similar life scenario, income wise, like it's like you're getting that wealth tax put onto you, and you see like the shop that might have been there, they also get it. So
Mm-hmm.
all like the options that were there at one point are slowly getting like diminished, and there's
Mm-hmm.
like less and less affordable options, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
come up with like more creative ways. So I do understand like the balance, because it's like you want like your quality of life to get better, but you also want the ability to stay in that quality
Mm-hmm.
of life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think again we've been very fortunate that we've done some of the mixed use project, like small, medium sized project in the east side, where clients were very conscientious, and they um, to create like small neighborhood retail shops, and to uh, sell and lease to minority business or historically
Hmm.
underutilized business or more boutique business, rather than they had offers to rent to Starbucks or a
Hmm.
corporate or a law firm. He rejected them, and then he and favor small. Uh, this was a project on East 11th Street, and those were like Helm boots. It was a local handmade boots.
Hmm.
Um, uh, kind of working with the local creative community, and working with small business. So I think there's these. I think it's very unique in Austin that there are developers and that are that are sensitive to
Hmm.
maintaining that kind of that kind of humanism and yeah
Yeah.
in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Austin is this like little gem. It's the blue bubble in the red state. And like you see areas like Houston and Dallas, and they have like a very, I would even almost say like a little bit of like a cold feel to them. Like if you ever go to the downtown, but Austin has like the river, it has like buildings, but then the buildings are only in downtown. A lot of like the mid-rise buildings, so that's like anywhere from like 4 floors to like I'd say 13 are spread out, but they're not too common. You see almost like a little mountain, I'd say. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like the tall buildings downtown and then like suburbs spread out instead of like Houston where it's almost like sporadic.
Yeah.
Um, and I do see like different developers like having more of an incentive because they don't want because like certain things don't fly in Austin, like or I wouldn't say don't fly, but they're more how do I say this? You are more likely to get a premium if you're able to like mix in the your project in with like the culture or like the community
Yeah.
within Austin,
Yeah. Yeah.
which it's like a interesting concept. It's almost like I don't want to compare it to Brooklyn, but like Brooklyn, like there's like zoning and different barriers in place to like prevent the changing of it.
Yeah, um, I think a lot of it has to do with the people
Mm-hmm.
also, because ultimately, like when we design a house, it's sort of like doing a portrait for someone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you work with somebody for a year or two, like they can't all their values, what's important, what their priorities. It's
Mm-hmm.
you can't really hide it, and so I think the city also ultimately it's an expression of what the people, what the community value. And so there's been a couple books that's been influential for me. There's a book called Architecture Without Architects,
Hmm.
by this guy Bernard Rudovsky. And so it's a black and white picture book where he traveled around the world for years collecting, visiting these human habitation cities, villages that were built centuries or maybe thousands of years ago. And a lot of these were built without architects, without technology. So
Mm-hmm.
these villages and these buildings were made with the elements. So a lot of passive passive solar, passive cooling. So in Central Asia, like the wind scoops, or building underground, you try to have tunnels. And then
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know like the Alhambra, where you have a series of reflecting ponds, and then you position the hallway so you have the breeze come through and then naturally cool the building.
Hmm.
You have the wind blowing through, and then with the coolness of the water. And so there are a lot of time tested, low tech ways of energy efficient building that people live with for thousands of years. I think in our high tech society, a lot of that is sort of abandoned or
Mm-hmm.
discarded. And so and also there's another book, a series of book by the author Christopher Alexander. It's called A Patterned Language. So he documented a lot of the spatial qualities
Mm-hmm.
that humans are gravitate towards. Like a nice reading nook in a building.
Mm-hmm.
A spot where you can see out, nice views, and then cozy. You feel shelter, and there are a lot of these spatial archetypes that's been around for forever. And how do you incorporate these humanistic spaces in an architecture project, or urban, like
Mm-hmm.
fountains, or I think a lot of these humanistic touches, they're the first to go, they're first
Mm-hmm.
to get value engineered. They are easy, it's very easily get cut out. And it seems like a small decision, but then overall, if everyone's cutting out their little humanistic touches, then pretty soon you have an entire city that's very cold.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things like that are not being taught, like these, like it's like death by paper cut.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, when you have, like in East Austin, you got lots of cute little juice bars, a little bungalow with like
Mm-hmm.
a pop-up sushi, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have like Esquina Tango, you have a salsa
Yeah.
studio. So, and then next thing you know, it's a very cute neighborhood. And then
Mm-hmm.
so that's yeah. So those are the things that at that scale, it's the people around matters a lot. The people that are involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was watching this video and they were talking about like gentrification, almost like how it starts, it's like at first it's like the poor community, and like typically the poor community, like they're creatives, like a lot of the times they have like a lot of that culture. For example, whenever I went to Brazil, they talked a lot about like samba and like capoeira, and how that was like an art form that they expressed during their time of turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
And then like now you start seeing like the struggling artists coming because they like the culture, and they almost like provide a sense of security for other people to come, and then like slowly the white collar workers start coming, and like there's like that good mix for a bit, and then it starts getting to a point where that neighborhood is hot and it's new, and it has like culture, but now that all like the Starbucks of the worlds, or like all the big corporate, the Nikes, or big companies are now coming into it, like it starts losing a lot of that vibrance. So my question to you is like, what do you see being Austin's like little vibrance? What is like the culture here that you would say you would prefer to preserve?
Well, I think, so the like this particular project, there's several inspiration for me. One is the torpedo factory in Old Town Alexandria in DC on the Potomac River.
Hmm?
Also, like the Menil collection in Houston, creating like a entire district of museums and shops and artist residency. Uh, and going back like the Black Mountain College, in the 30s or 20s or 30s, yeah, where creative group of creative people come together, scientists and Bucky Fuller and
Mm-hmm.
Robert Rauschenberg and the Merce Cunningham, dancers, all creative people. So I think, and then also like locally, there's the Flatbed Press, which used to be on MLK for decades, and which has been torn down and turned into a mixed use. It's a TOD project now, and they've relocated to, I think, along Burleson in Southeast Austin. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like a maze of galleries and artist studios, and they always had great events and open studios. So that's an inspiration. That's one of the inspirations for this place, and we're trying to activate and have more. We have a quarterly makers artist market. We have a lot of events where we have like quinceañeras, where
Really?
they want to, that's in the planning stages, where the the renter, they want to hire an artist to help them with decoration.
Huh.
So it's like creating a little small micro economy, a creative economy within this, 130, 140 people. And to keep that, I think one of the nicest things somebody said to me is when they came here, they said this remind them of old Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's old kind of mom and pop,
Mm-hmm.
quirky, creative little shops and efforts
Mm-hmm.
that are getting priced out of South Congress. They're
Mm-hmm.
getting replaced by Nike's superstore.
Yeah.
And so I think to have a place like this that's still very close, we're one exit from downtown.
Mm-hmm.
It's and long term, if we end up, densifying or adding additional subsequent components,
Mm-hmm.
we the hope is that this is the arts driven, and
Mm-hmm.
it serves as a catalyst
Mm-hmm.
to attract other creative people,
Yeah.
and in the neighborhood, and yeah.
So I want to ask you, what do you think about like the more humanistic nature parts of this? I mean, like it's no secret, like sometimes where the culture is and where like lower income neighborhoods are, crime is very prevalent, and security is like a little bit of a risk. For example, whenever I was in Brazil, people would always tell me like I have to be very careful in certain areas, like I can't have my phone out, and that's like where a lot of like the parties or the events would be, or like a lot of like the nightlife would be. Would you ever say that security and like safety is ever an issue, like when you think about like maybe designing certain spots?
Yeah, I think it takes a village, right? I think this is it's not, as an architect and a builder and a developer, I'm not a law enforcement officer, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't legislate, I don't make rules or law, so we are, the thing on our side is, you think about like the broken window theory, the best thing we can do is just to create a healthy environment,
Mm-hmm.
that's safe, and um, that and building a community and also lifting everyone up. There are great programs in Austin like the Mobile Loaves and Fishes, in the Tiny Village.
What is
Uh,
that?
it's a project in Northeast Austin. Actually, so one of the anchor tenant in our space is Art for the People Gallery, and the owner is Deanna Sarah, and she's been a long time philanthropist, very active in philanthropy in the arts, and so she was part. I believe she was involved in that project. She donated the land, has been supporting that, and also with their arts program, art education program. So it's a place where people who are experiencing homelessness can go and have a tiny home and have programs that match their interests in, whether it's culinary or working on technology or cars or garden. They have all kinds of, and it's a community that help people, to develop and recover. And that's something that with like art therapy, and that's something one of our tenants has had a long history of being involved with. I think these are the things that we can on our side that we can do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. To create like more spaces like
more
that.
spaces and more just create that, and also a better community, and trying to, we also have like Foundation Community is across the street from us, and they're one of the major provider of affordable housing.
Yeah. I volunteer for them. I do their Vita tax preparation. So I help lower income people do their taxes, and it's something I've been talking to my friends about. It's like, hey, if you ever want to learn taxes, go volunteer. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I wanna pivot in a little bit more to know a little bit more about you and what are some of your more creative pursuits. I mean, you've had everything from like urban landfill projects to high rises. What would you say is like your favorite one to work on, or favorite type of project to work on, and what are the things that you like looking forward to whenever you just see a barren piece of land?
I think for me, it's not about the size of the project or the type. It's really more having the right collaborators, having the right co-GP, having the right client, having the right investor, where your vision and your values align, and you're moving in the same direction. You care about the same. I think that's the most important. That's where you have a better chance of making a nice project, a meaningful project. I think in my experience, I think the intentionality behind it, and the commitment, to the project. So not so much on the type. I think it's really more. I think there was an interview with the Swiss architect Peter Zumthor. He talked about how he needs a client that's like a collaborator. It's a two-way street. It's a because when at any given project, you're making thousands of decisions together. So on everything, on the aesthetic decisions, financial decisions. When you're on the development side, are you merchant build? Are you long-term hold? There are all these things that the underlying investment thesis and your value system, what your priorities. It's when they're not aligned, then it's a battle, right? It's a lot of conflict. So having the right partners where your values are aligned, you're rowing in the same direction. That generally, and also then it extend to like we need like the city, like, and the count, or the larger environment, that or the neighborhood or the community that want the same thing. Otherwise, you have conflict and friction.
Do you see like a disconnect between like Austin and like how the entitlements work, or basically entitlements, for anyone that isn't like a big real estate person? It's all the legal work that it takes to get a project ready in real estate.
So typically when we start a project, we look at the flume, right, which is the future land use map. And typically with the flume, the city at some point maybe engage the community. They maybe spend $200,000-300,000 to hire a consultant to do a survey, engage the community, maybe have a barbecue and some free beer, and then to solicit, they might have like a big table, everyone draw the kids, and what would you like to see in your neighborhood, and what kind of density, what kind of amenities, and then it could take a year, 9 months, however long, and then the city, and that becomes available when it's completed, and then usually when we are working on a project, we would look at the film for basically it's the aspiration, the hopes and dreams of the neighborhood that's aggregated by a professional consultant, and so and then that also informed like the typical the as of right uses, and also the potential variance, so we generally we try to be respectful and try to understand what the neighborhood's hopes and dreams are, and then we try to work with try to as much as we can bring and so I think yeah.
Do you feel like there's ever a disconnect that you've seen between like the community and like the city of Austin?
I mean, I think the challenge is these kind of reports, could take years, right? So sometimes between the time that they're commissioned and then when they come out, and Austin changes so quickly, within a couple of years, like that report may become obsolete, and so I think the time factor, there's a lag between the desire, the demographic of the community versus the people, and the collective good of the neighborhood. There are a lot of really exciting, interesting things happening. For instance, like I think we take the major overhaul of I-35, and then you have these like deck parks that are being proposed over I-35.
What are deck parks?
So I think there's a few proposed. I think it's maybe between 8 or 9 or 10th Street. There are a couple of spots. I think to start in Dallas with the Clyde Warren Park, which is downtown. Basically, there's a highway that cut downtown and uptown, cut it into two, and then so what the park does is it stitches the neighborhood back, and then there are kids playgrounds, and then all of a sudden it's making the real estate more valuable, and also it's more green space, and it's less of an eyesore, and the city's less divided. So there are a couple of I think it's called cap and stitch, I think. So this is something I think Sinclair Black, who's the former dean at UT Architecture, this has been a brainchild of his for many years, and so I think he's one of the promoters, and he's been doing this for decades, and so I think we're finally at a point, he's been advocating for decades, and it looks like we're finally at the point where TxDOT may adopt it, and so we're about to see East Austin and downtown being stitched back together through these deck parks, that covers the parts of I-35, so and also to improve the quality of life for more trees, and
so I'm trying to envision it. How would it go? Would it go like almost like over I-35, almost like a tunnel in a sense?
It will. So I think parts of I-35 is already depressed, right? So I think there's an area where basically it would just be a new park hovering over I-35, and I they may dig a little deeper and allow it to go under. And so, I-35 years ago was a tree-lined boulevard. It was a grand avenue, many decades, maybe 80, 90 years ago. So there's some major projects, urban projects that has huge implications to improve the quality of life and for downtown.
Yeah, that was awesome. So hearing you, I understand that you're like very involved in the local Austin market. Is there any other place that you like working in, or any specific areas that you like to work around? I mean, you have the international background, so I'm assuming that you've worked countless amounts of places.
I think we worked in Mexico quite a bit. We worked we designed a project in Bentonville. We designed a Skyline Theater in Bentonville, which is affiliated with the Crystal Bridges Museum, great museum. And so, yeah, it's we enjoy working in different locations, and because it stretches you, it gives you new inspirations, new clients, and
Mm-hmm.
you uh, yeah, it's kind of it's working in Mexico also is interesting.
Yeah. What
Um,
part of Mexico did you work in?
we worked on a couple projects in Baja California. We worked in Mexico City also. We
Mm-hmm.
worked on master planning of luxury resort projects,
Mm-hmm.
and outsides of Mexico City. So the different construction systems, different there's a lot of great architecture in Mexico, great inspirations as well that kind of enrich our design vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. So, whenever whenever we're talking about Mexico, I hear like all these headlines about like people, especially in America, getting like these tech roles and now moving to like the Mexico cities of the world because it does have like that culture and because it's like Mexican culture in general, I feel like it already has that vibrance like embedded into it. People talk about like the disruption of Mexico City and the gentrification, but because like it's also surrounded by that culture, uh, like America, we have the American culture, and Austin has like the Texan culture embedded into it. I feel like it's almost like a little bit difficult to displace. Whenever you were in Mexico, how how did you like think about the culture? Like were you just like trying to get like locals? Like how are you trying to get a grasp of what it actually entails locally?
Um, so the first time I went to Mexico City, there was a strange sense of familiarity because
Mm-hmm.
the city it's elevated, and I think it was a volcanic crater lake,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think Lake Texcoco, I think, and so the present day Mexico City, I think they've lost maybe 99% of the lake, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's always flooding because it's built on a lake bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the city that I was born in Taipei, it was also an ancient volcanic lake bed. That oh wait, we have and so surrounded by mountains. So
Uh-huh.
there was kind of a very interesting familiarity to it, and just the vibrancy of the city. But obviously Mexico is I think Taipei is maybe 5 6 million in the
Mm-hmm.
metro, maybe seven. The Mexico City is much bigger,
Mm-hmm.
20 million, 20 over, and with amazing, very vibrant historic districts,
Mm-hmm.
like La Condesa and these areas where they're great,
Mm-hmm.
like entire net of great like Art Deco,
Mm-hmm.
buildings and historic buildings and colonial buildings, and even like there's a layering of like pre-Columbian,
Hmm.
ruins underneath. So it's an incredible, you know, um, amalgamation of like layers of centuries of
Mm-hmm.
culture. So it's like you're overstimulated, and um, but it's inspiring, and it's always changing.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what edge do you think you have against just the common developer? You are a developer yourself, but you have more of that artistic vision in you, and you have that left brain and the right brain kind of put together. Where some developers they just see the numbers, they're like, maybe we'll hire an architect, he'll kind of figure out like the left brain versus right brain parts for us, and we'll kind of just argue on budgets.
Um, I think the architecture, the design background definitely is it creates a different perspective on
Mm-hmm.
things, and so I think historically we are not like a category killer. We
Mm-hmm.
don't do the same thing 200 times. So it's a double-edged sword. I think we're always looking for something, and also there's something there's a financial side. There's the ROIs and the IRRs and all these
Mm-hmm.
calculations. You run
The
the performance, the
metrics.
metrics. There's also like the impact on the community.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of projects like I worked on about 25 years ago. I worked on the Caritas on the soup kitchen for the unhoused downtown, and that was a pro bono project where I volunteered, and that building's still there, and it had a very modest budget, but it was a very impactful project. So there are these different measurements, and also the like I mentioned, like we designed a project in the east side where the client turned down corporate corporate offers in favor of small mom and pop tenants, and he probably left money on the table. But then, how do you price like that neighborhood feeling, that kind of humanism, and the more kind of grassroots and authentic Austin kind of experience of this building versus, we could have had a building of just like Starbucks, a giant Starbucks, and a giant law firm, versus having like 12 little tiny gallery, a little plant shop, a little handmade boots shop, a little, salon. It's just, but then the whole experience is completely different. So I think, and I think it's the aggregate. And Austin has a lot of great, people developed that are very mindful of preserving and creating, more authentic urban experiences.
Yeah. Do you see any big mistakes when you talk to developers? Like, this is a recurring theme when like, let's say a big developer comes in from like New York or from Houston, that they kind of want to like almost impose their will in Austin, but they're maybe not able to, or any mistakes that you might say?
I mean, I think these projects are very complicated, and also the timing is everything, so what a lot of times there, good people can get caught up, and there's also, you have the macro condition, you have all these, you have interest rate, you have construction costs, you have property tax, you have crime, the security of the neighborhood,
bank knocking on your door telling you to pay up.
It's you have cultural factors, you have all of these forces at play. So I think maybe, I think there was a quote with the Rem Koolhaas. He said architects are both omnipotent and impotent at the same time. Meaning so it seems like an architect can have a lot of say. You design a building, you get to do every detail, but at the same time, you can just, one phone call, your project's canceled, and you're also completely powerless. So there's so many hands in these projects, and I think sometimes developers get thrown under the bus, but in reality, it's very complex. And you also have government agencies, you have the regulatory aspect, and there's so many, and you have neighborhood associations. So you have a lot of competing forces at play that shape a project. I think sometimes it's oversimplified in the media. It's sort of like, oh, there's a mistake here, oh, there's a bad guy, or it's not simple like that. There are a lot of a series of like all the stars has to align for a project to happen, and all these, it's like the butterfly effect, like the fluttering of the butterfly wings could have massive impact on the outcome. And I think and there's also, there are a lot of unintended consequences as well. But I think maybe some of the traditional larger developers, there's a formula, and there's a why mess with something that works, right? So I think it's a lot of times it's tempting to just, then there's more financial certainty, and all the stakeholders are more comfortable. So again, this goes back to picking your battle. Like, maybe if there's some idealisms, and maybe not destabilize it to the point where it blows up the deal or creates larger, like, maybe, I think, incremental changes, and maybe not like revolution.
So as someone who's like interested in potentially going into real estate, what are like some of the aspects? I kind of think real estate's like this conglomerate of an industry, and you get overwhelmed by all the information. we know that you should focus on the cultural aspect and also like the financial aspect. But what are some other aspects do you think that will make you like a more well-rounded person within this space?
Um, I think getting to know the community, meeting with people, and I think good like listening
Mm-hmm.
skills, and I think it's uh the I think just ability to work with people,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of times, a lot of conflicts that are solvable, it just they arise because people just stop talking to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just start saying, "Well, you're the bad guy, you're the
Mm-hmm.
problem," whereas so often it's just like having a conversation and trying to put oneself in the other counterparty's shoes, and to try to make a concerted effort to understand, and how can we work together, and find some kind of a common ground. I think everyone's just moving so quick, so fast. It's a lot of times it's easy to dismiss other people's opinions or feelings, and I think that's something that's lacking in our world, just like maybe more kindness and compassion. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that's weird to talk about in real estate, commercial real
No,
estate.
I,
um
I
and
think it's like an undervalued thing. Like we talk about the hard skills a lot, but like a lot of the soft skills are important. Like I was just talking to one of my academic advisors about how I feel like my resume only has soft skills and it's not enough the hard skills. And she was like, yeah, but these soft skills are valuable to people. And like a lot of Macomb students, like they're showing a lot of these like hard skills. Here's like this certification that I have, here's this training that I have. But it's like, are you able to actually work effectively in a team? Are you able to go like past those projects? And it's, I mean, it is like a very hard thing to do because it's like we're all shaped by our cultures and experiences, and it isn't until we're willing to break the cycle of tradition or of comfort. I give like a good example. Um, my family is Mexican American, and in Mexican American culture, like machismo is very common. It's very popular. It's like the man has this job, the woman has this job, and together we make this family, and they're gonna be traditional most of the time. That's like the ideal way. But it's like whenever I've been like talking to my mom, or I've been talking to like my family from my hometown, they're like, no, it's always kind of been done this way. And I'm like, do we ever like stop to question why? Do we ever stop to like realize that some of these values that we hold so true to our heart, like why are we holding it so true to our heart? Is it because like we're conditioned to think this way, or is it because like it's actually serving us? Is it actually helping us grow as people? And I feel like my experience coming to college, it's definitely challenged a lot of that conditioning that I've had, but it also makes me think, dang, I'm in Austin, one of the craziest places to grow up, and like sometimes I look at different things and I'm like, you know what? I think I like some of these traditional values, and sometimes I think they do serve me, but
yeah,
it's like a balancing act, like as you'd probably say.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of cultural richness in Austin,
Hmm.
so, um, and I think that's the beauty of, yeah, all the different cultures coming together, and yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
different.
I know you have a meeting in a few, so I kind of want to start wrapping up.
Okay.
But I want to talk about you as a person. I see all these books. I want to ask first, how many of them have you actually read?
I mean, I've skimmed through most of those, and some
Hmm.
are a lot of them are architecture design related,
Hmm.
urbanism and art books, and that it's a cheap way to travel, and
Hmm.
and and, and gather ideas. And
Hmm.
so So this is about half of my. The other half is in my house, and
Mm-hmm.
so I
This is only half?
this only yeah.
Well, that is insane. Do you
It's
have like a bookshelf at home?
yeah. This is a low carbon footprint way to travel the world
Okay.
and gather ideas.
Yeah. And what would you say are some of the most beneficial books for you? I'm gonna go for one as an architect, one for real estate, and one for just like personal life.
Uh, I think for personal life, I think the Marcus Aurelius book on Stoicism. I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's a good book. You know, that's um, and then on the architecture side, you know, that Architecture Without Architect. It's a good book. It's a little book. You can find it at probably half price for like $5.
Mm-hmm.
It's black and white, but it's like thousands of years of human wisdom. And some of these cities are abandoned. The villages are being abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like it's like human intelligence like concretized.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a relic of how they work with the elements. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how they gather food and how they work with the climate and then the
Mm-hmm.
natural world. Um, and sometimes they're very beautiful. They're very sculptural but it's very practical.
Mm-hmm.
It's not frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like survival, but there's a beauty to that. There's efficiency to that. What was the other one?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of books on real estate. I think I'm interested in. I think I look at a lot of biographies. I look
Mm-hmm.
at the other people's journey and try
Mm-hmm.
to stand on the shoulder of giants, learn from
Mm-hmm.
their success and mistakes, and I like the biographies and interviews. Generally, I find are it's like you're having a dialogue with them,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not around anymore.
Yeah. So you're at a point where you've already had some experience within your architects
Yeah.
in your architecture. What would you say to you at 18? You're just starting in this. You don't really know what's going on, and you have the giant world to explore. What advice do you wish you would have received back then?
Um, I think um, I mean I've been very fortunate. I feel very blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Just the opportunity that I've been given. Also, I think in my own practice, I think I've collaborated with probably over 200 or 300 people in my own practice over time.
Mm-hmm.
All the partners, senior associates, designers, interior designers, architects, and interns and residency students, and so it's I think the architecture and real estate is a very collaborative act. It's not possible. It's not an individual. It's
Mm-hmm.
sport. It's not like art. It's not like you're not
Mm-hmm.
a soul. It's just there's so many hands in it. So I think. I mean, I probably wish I could have done a better job, like uh, coordinating or structuring things, and uh, but overall, I think we've been very fortunate, just to have
Mm-hmm.
completed the project that and that we have done, and also the explorations, and then the large scale, the master planning projects. Were working with uh, a lot of very talented people, you know. So I don't know. I think yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's, there are deals, there are things you get paid in different ways. Sometimes there are deals that are lucrative, but it may not be fulfilling, and then
Mm-hmm.
there are projects that are fulfilling, but vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit like, yeah, like filmmakers, right? Sometimes they make a blockbuster film, and then they make an art house.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you make one for the studio, you make one for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different projects that we work on. You get, you're rewarded in different ways. And so, um, so yeah, it's it's uh it's um it's it's a great way to engage the world and learn and engage people and
Hmm.
find out about other people and find out about yourself and
Yeah. I usually say who, not how. Who can I learn from, not how can I learn this?
yeah
Because it's like people will give you like those minor details
yeah
that you're missing
yeah mm-hmm.
countless amount of times more than a book ever will. I love reading, but I also think the real knowledge is within the person.
Yeah.
Who do you feel have been like your biggest mentors within just, I'm gonna go with life and then career?
um like in real life, my when I was in college, one of my professors, Michael Rotundi, so he was a co-founder of the firm with Tom Main of the firm Morphosis,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very influential firm, uh, in the U.S. and in the world. They're very avant-garde. So I think that they were in the MoMA, the MoMA Museum of Modern Art in New York in the '90s had a show called The Deconstructivists, and there were maybe one of maybe half a dozen architects,
Mm-hmm.
so major architects of our time. So I think they also co-founded SciArc, Southern California Institute of Architecture, which is one of the most avant-garde architecture schools in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's been very influential for me. And in terms of development, I've had a lot of developer clients. I think that I've learned a lot from all of them. They've been all very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Harvard MBA, own huge portfolios, and
Mm-hmm.
and you know um, uh, I was on the design commission. I think Perry Lorenz. He was one of my fellow commissioners, and I learned a lot from him also. And he's been a long time developer and on the commission for 3 decades, and
Mm-hmm.
he's been involved with like the Waller Creek, the redevelopment, and then that area. So I learned a lot from all of these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, there was like a lot of information this episode,
Yeah.
and for someone that's like maybe not as attuned to real estate or
Yeah.
architecture,
Yeah.
they would be like, "This was interesting, but what do I get out of it?" So, out of if someone was just to watch your life story, what would be the top 3 lessons you'd hope they get?
Um, I think I think you I think when you do something, I think you have to do with conviction.
Mm-hmm.
I think attitude is destiny. So I think a lot of people I know, they have the intellect, they have the ability, but they lack conviction, and and I think believe and also the plus execution, the hard work. Um, I think that's important. Yeah, and I think the on the architecture is a very tough business, and also it's very demanding. You can do 10,000 things right, you do 2 things wrong. That's what people remember.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think the creative satisfaction is very rewarding. Um, and the yeah, bringing something concrete into the world that you can be proud of. I think that's that may outlast you. It's an interesting feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
Kind of did. It was like there. So it's like be vindictive, or like like have conviction in like what you do.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
going full force.
Like not in a blind way, like
Yeah.
in the like I was reading about how like about Jamie Dimon, like during the financial crisis, they were trying to rescue Bear Stearns, and then so they had to raise like $30 billion, something like
Dang.
that. So they did 6 months. So they called everyone in the office over the weekend. They had 1,000 people working on this deal. They did 6 months of due diligence in 2 days, and then to try to save the economy. I think sometimes like the intensity of I think we live in a time of like work life balance, and then so I feels like those kind of stories are like not cool or not in fashion, but it's like it's a lot of work, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And but um yeah, it's there's a intensity, there's um I think some of our best projects really are, I think working with talented, creative, conscientious client,
Mm-hmm.
and like having that camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's been one of the best
Mm-hmm.
feelings that you have, and then you're moving the same direction, and then you suffer with pleasure together,
Yeah.
and you end up with a beautiful project. I think that's a very special, very bonding experience, and that's really irreplaceable. And also, creating something that, I think also we live in a world where everything's become interchangeable. So then to be able to, the French architect Jean Nouvel, he talks a lot about the specificity of a place.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at Austin now, like the Austin that I know from 30 years ago is buried. It's like a Mexican pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a Russian is like the Austin skyline that I remember. Sometimes I'm driving, like, it's gone. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like another pyramid that's buried like three
Mm-hmm.
layers in. It's like a city that I don't recognize. Um, so I think to be able to produce something that has meaning, and you know um, to the culture, and the people and the place, that's specific to this place, I think that's a special thing.
Mm-hmm.
That from in a world of very like homogeneous kind of, the homogeneity of everything.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's kind of too far in the beginning. That's why like some of these large anonymous suburbs feels very dehumanizing,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no, you know you could be in any other city, there's no connection, it's not grounded.
Yeah. All right. So I got two. I wanna try to get the third one out of you. So it's like do things with conviction. Then it's also be with the creative minds, the talented minds, the minds, and try to get in a scenario where you're learning with them, suffering with them, and going towards a goal together. What would be the third lesson that you would hope someone would learn from you?
um, I think, if you take this project for instance, uh, I think this project came out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of our work, I just saw a need um, for affordable creative space, and I just kind of did it. It just there wasn't a lot of. Sometimes I think you just have to go for it, and
Mm-hmm.
because if you wait for the perfect condition, I think that's what a lot of people do. They try to wait when conditions are perfect, then they will start. But I feel like in reality, you just have to take the first step, and then you figure out as you go, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think
Yeah.
there was that in that Steve Jobs movie, he talks about like NASA when they launch. Sometimes when they launch a satellite or a mission, they have like a 93%, 95% certainty that they can bring it back, but it's not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wait, you may never launch. So I think there's an aspect of that. I'm not asking people to be reckless, but like
Mm-hmm.
there's a kind of element where you have to figure out as you go.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like diminishing returns, and you can't have the most informed decision at step zero. You would probably have a more informed decision at like step four as opposed to zero.
Yeah, it's a constant. You're working constantly to try to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, and you stick to it, and you try to listen to people, get help, and pay attention to what's going on around, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think it's what keeps you alive. Just like, um, yeah.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask, where would be somewhere that people could reach out to you? Like, let's say they really found what you're saying interesting. They wanted to know a little bit more about your work. They wanted to potentially email you or something of the sort. Where would be the best place to contact you?
Email is probably best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, email. And then the work, on the architecture side, the work that I've done in the last 25 years, it's been pretty extensively published. So I think there's um, there a lot of them are available online.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm happy to you know to communicate and talk about opportunities. And I like collaborating, and I like learning from other people. I think there's certain things, like they say, like, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And
Mm-hmm.
and um and yeah, that's what
What's a good email for you?
it's. Um it's POWEI@bcarc.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel like I've never really talked this extensively about Austin's culture. So this is a first for me. Every single conversation that I've had about real estate, it's more so about some of the hard skills, not really the soft
Yeah.
skills that go into thinking about certain things such as like cultures, neighborhoods,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
It's more analytical, and
Right.
it's refreshing to kind of hear this and to see some of the creative spaces. I'm gonna try to be implementing some B-roll footage of the space that you have here, because I think it's been one of the more interesting spots I've visited in Austin.
Yeah, I think one last thing I'll say is there's like in Miami they have the Wynwood district, right? There's some interesting project people are doing in Miami, in Canada and the East
Mhm.
Coast. I think the Faina Hotel, they have,
Mhm.
everyone's doing luxury hotel condo, but then there's like they curate their residents' cultural life. They have a 3-acre campus with their own auditorium, theater, cultural programming,
Mhm.
artist residency, lecture series, poetry reading. And so there's a curated community cultural life that's part of that project. And I think that's a pretty new, and that was designed by Rem Koolhaas with the
Mhm.
OMA out of the Netherlands, Office for Metropolitan Architecture out of the Netherlands.
Mhm.
So I think that's maybe, and that's still a pretty new concept, but I think maybe in the future, I think people are beyond the, I like you want to move up the Maslow, like the needs pyramid. You want to move towards self-actualization, right?
Mhm.
So beyond the food and the shelter and all that, ultimately people are looking for something a little deeper, a little more. So
Mhm.
I think curating, building a community, and there's lots of that happening in Austin now. There's lots of these conscious community out
Mhm.
in the suburbs, 50, 100 acre, more like healthier living, healthier
Yeah.
food and
The
wellness and all that. And so, there's not really an urban version yet. So I mean, I think maybe this could be longer term, uh, like kind of the creative life, curating the creative life as part of this living experience is a very interesting frontier to
Yeah.
explore.
I've seen a lot of that where there's like people kind of selling uh parcels in like some random uh like 100-acre land, and they'll sell like an acre. They'll be like, and it comes with a cow and already established farm, and you could be a little ranch hand, or you could hire your own ranch hand. And these are communities that we're building for healthier people who want to avoid all the seed oils and live off beef tallow and and have like a more uh, nature like lifestyle. Yeah, but well, it's been very interesting. Do you have any last words that you want to say?
Uh, no, this is great interview, great questions.
Yeah,
So thank you. Yeah, I
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
taking
Thank
the
you,
time
Gabe.
to have this
Yeah,
conversation.
of course,
All
anytime.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Oh, let me turn this off. I sincerely hope everything went well. I feel like there was like a